Hello, welcome back to my channel. How are you all? I hope you all had a good time. And for those of you seeing me for the first time, I would like to introduce myself as Rocha. And I have been making several videos on different types of mental illnesses, and recently I started with nursing research mainly to help all the students, especially those who are attending Dr. NTR UHS exams. So my previous two videos are about nursing research and the steps in research process. We have discussed on various aspects. I hope that I'll make much more videos on different important questions which are asked in the exams, and hopefully I'll share more information regarding nursing research, then later statistics. So before moving ahead, for those of you who haven't subscribed, please do subscribe my channel and share to others, as this will be helpful for others too. So for today's topic, I thought I'll share with you regarding review of literature. This is a very important topic because this has been asked several times every year. From this chapter, questions do come in essay, as an essay, or 5 marks questions, 2 marks questions. So anyway, when we see exam point of view, you can have an idea of how many times this is asked. It's a very important topic. So if you're all ready, then we will just go ahead. What is the meaning of literature? It is a written record. Literature meant a written record of something, some topic, or related to something. We call it as a literature. So here we are going to see review of literature. So research, review of literature. So in this, what we are going to see? We are going to search for something regarding what we want some more information. So some of the components what we are going to discuss in this video is regarding introduction, definition, characteristics of good quality review of literature, factors affecting review of literature, importance of review of literature, purpose of review of literature, methods of review of literature, skills required, steps involved, and sources of review of literature. Coming to exam point of view, NTR UHS has asked, as said, enumerate the purpose and methods of review of literature. It is a 10 marks question which is asked in June 2018. This is asked, and June 2021 February it is asked. Then in June 2020 also it is asked in a different form, like discuss in detail about review of literature. Then purpose of review of literature, it is a 5 marks question in 2022. Then 2019 source of literature review is asked. So every year, like 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, this question from this chapter is being asked. Now coming to the introduction part of it. It is a summary of all the review from various research literatures to the current study. We want to conduct a study. We want to know what has been already done regarding the study, what we want to do. And we want to identify how they have done. So the main purpose, it will help the reader, whoever is reading or reviewing the literature, to identify what work has already been done, and it will give a knowledge and ideas how it is done and how the literature can be used in the present study. And it will not only that, review of literature, previously I have discussed, in each and every step of research process, review of literature helps. What is the definition of review of literature? So we have three definitions here. One is American Nurses Association 2000. They said it aims to review the critical points of knowledge on a particular topic of research. When we do this literature review, it is a body of text. Yeah, we said written record. Mainly it aims at what? Review of critical points of knowledge on a particular topic of research what you have selected. That is according to ANA 2000. Then we also have Burns and Grew 2005. They have said it is organized written presentation. Literature means written record. That's what it means. So it is an organized written presentation of what has been published on the topic by the scholars. Who are the scholars? One who does the study are called as the scholars. Next we have S.K. Sharma. I think most of you are using this textbook. So S.K. Sharma, he defines literature review is defined as a broad, comprehensive, in-depth, systematic critique and synthesis of scholarly publications, unpublished print and online materials, audiovisual materials and personal communications. So literature review means it is broad, comprehensive, in-depth, systematic critiquing. That means appraising, commenting whether have done or not, synthesizing the scholarly published publications as well as unpublished print and online materials, audiovisual materials and personal communications. You can select any one of the definition if you are asked a question. Coming to characteristics of good quality review of literature. When we say review of literature is good quality, just going through literature is different, but reviewing the literature is different aspects. That we have to understand. Just browsing and just going through aimlessly, we cannot say review of literature. It is with a purpose we do this review of literature. So when we say good quality, it must be comprehensive, up to date. It must be systematic, reproducible, free from bias. It should be well written and it should be in pro of some of the parts. It should be clearly searched and selected. Accurate references should be given in the review. So when we say references, who did it, when they did it, is it a primary source or a secondary source? Where is it published? All these have to be included. Next, coming to factors affecting review of literature. When we say there are certain aspects, like when we try to do literature review, it is very important regarding the researcher's background, because an experienced person can do it better when compared with that unexperienced person. It's a truth or a fact, isn't it? So complexity of research project. If the research project is simple, then it is easy to collect review of literature when compared to that of complex ones. Availability of resources. So when we want to do literature review, we need a computer or a tab or a smartphone. We need internet facilities. We need online journals or offline journals. We need libraries. So we need to have these resources. Unless we have these resources, we will not be able to gather information. Next, study time frame. Now we are going to conduct a study, and if the time frame is very short and where you have to complete the whole study, then you will not allocate more time for review of literature. That's the truth. So when you don't have much time, you won't be able to gather more data. So the review of literature will be insufficient if you have less time frame. Availability of support systems. When we say support system, person who guides you, person who helps you to gather data. Maybe if one person who does research, review of literature, is different from that of having 5 persons, isn't it? So it takes much more time for one person to do review of literature if the time frame is very short. But in spite of that, if we have more support where each person gathers data on each aspect, then they can gather a lot of information. That's how it is. So some of the factors are researcher's background, complexity of research project, availability of resources, study time frame. Next one is availability of support system. Next, this is very important. Very important. Importance of review of literature. Why is it very important? Review of literature. It is very important because to establish a link between researches that have been already done and their relationship with the proposed study which means what you want to do. The present study, what you want to do, is the proposed study. So when you review literature, you will get an information where you can have an idea of what has been already done and how that relates to your study. And next one is, it will avoid duplication of work. This is also very important. There's no point in carrying out a study which has been done already and you are just replicating it, which means that you are not providing any new knowledge. So to avoid duplication of work, we need to do review of literature, whereby you can modify your problem statement. Maybe different setting, different population, different sample size, data collection method, tools, etc. Next, when literature review is performed sincerely and honestly, it will provide a lot of information. Another importance of literature review is to trace the intellectual progression or the recent advances related to that topic. So whenever we are doing review of literature, we say time frame just below 5 years. If nothing is available, then go to 10 years at the most. But mostly it is time for recent researches which are done, so that you can connect what has been done, what has been recommended, then your study is in continuity with that, how the problem statement or the proposed study had recent advances, what were they, you'll have an idea. Next, apart from that, literature review summarizes the available literature of any one topic with different perspectives. The topic problem statement might be the same, or the topic of research might be the same, but it might be of different perspective. When we say different perspective, some might have done it as a descriptive study, maybe you're going to do it as an experimental study. So under experimental, you may go for quasi-experimental or true experimental design, or you might go for any other things. So exploratory, descriptive, etc. Correlation. So your approach to the topic will be different. Next, after reviewing the literature, at the end you will be identifying if there are any gaps which are existing in the topic, and these gaps will provide significance to your study. What is the significance of the study you are taking? Because previously studies were done on the same topic, but there are some gaps there. They haven't covered these particular areas, and I am using it, and I am going to cover that area. That's where you show that the study what you are going to is going to have some significance. Then coming to lastly, it plays an important role in identifying the difference of opinions and the contradictory findings and explanations of various researchers on the same topic. So researchers do have difference in opinions when they're disseminating their findings interpretations can be different. Their explanations can be different. So you will be able to identify these difference in their opinions. So these are all some of the key points related to importance of review of literature. Next, coming to purpose of review of literature. So coming to here, this is also another important topic, exam point of view. Some of the points what we have discussed in importance of review of literature also will be mentioned here. But additional to that, take note of the points which we haven't mentioned. So purpose, it also mentions regarding what is already known about the research problem. Whatever your problem you have selected, review of literature helps whatever is already known. And it is built on previous knowledge, previous research studies. And many studies which were done on the same topic does give recommendations at the end of the study in conclusions. So these recommendations for future research where we get an idea of doing a new research study. Another thing is avoiding duplication of work. That's already discussed. So while purpose of review of literature is another aspect is that it narrows the problem to be studied. It questions a body of research which does not have an answer. It identifies some questions. Already some research is being done and you get some thoughts in your mind why this aspect is not covered. So it's questioning and you try to find an answer. It helps the researcher to get acquainted with relevant theories, conceptual frameworks, data tools, instruments used, data collection methods, etc. It helps us to understand the different ways of conducting a research studies because everybody does not conduct in the same manner. Some might be qualitative, some might be quantitative. Under quantitative, different data collection method, different sampling methods might have been used. Sample sizes might have been different. Locations might have been different. So when you do review of literature, you will be able to understand different ways how the research studies have been conducted. It helps to identify comparative data. So it helps in interpretation and discussion of previous study. Now when we do literature review, it's not only for research purposes, conducting research we do this, but also we do literature review for non-research purposes. For example, as students, you are given some assignments and you do search journals, different books, online, etc. for your academic course. And to update with the current personal knowledge and practice of topic, you do this. To evaluate current practices, to develop and update guidelines of practice, and to develop work-related policies. These are some areas where we do review of literature for non-researchers purpose as well. Coming to methods of review of literature, this is very important as in exam point of view. This question is asked, methods of review of literature. So there are different methods based upon the purpose and methodologies. We can do review of literature. So the first method is traditional or narrative literature review. Then we have systematic literature review, which uses meta-analysis and meta-synthesis. Coming to traditional and narrative review of literature, this is a type of literature review which presents the summary of literature and it draws conclusions about the topic in the question. So the literature review has summary of facts on the subject area from primary and secondary sources. So for this literature review, it requires sufficiently focused research question. it is comprehensive. In a way, it is conceptual or theoretically based. Traditional or narrative literature review. It is comprehensive, conceptually based. It does has some weaknesses. These reviews are influenced by publication bias in absence of strict protocols. This we have to keep in mind. Review becomes subjective judgment of included studies. And under this traditional or narrative literature review, large number of studies cannot be done because it makes it difficult to draw conclusions. Because figurative data is not presented here. The process is to subject to bias that the supports the researcher's own work sometimes. So, traditional and narrative literature review mainly focuses on summarizing as well as presenting the conclusion part of it. Mostly it is like conceptual and theoretical. It is a bit comprehensive. So, when we say comprehensive, maybe like qualitative sometimes, case studies. So, mostly like qualitative studies. We can use it narrative part of it where we can draw some themes, experiences, etc. Next, coming to systematic literature review. Here, when we say systematic, this is far from traditional and narrative. Traditional and narrative is just an explanation of it. But we say systematic, here we have some things like information, quantitative amounts of information which is analyzed, interpreted. It is more systematic approach to the review of literature in a specific subject area. So it is mainly reviewed from published and unpublished studies related to particular subject area. Now the focus of question is narrow. It lacks comprehensiveness. Systematic literature review, here an advanced form of systematic review of literature is meta-analysis. Like this includes large body of findings like quantitative studies, what I have said. It includes like a statistical analysis. What it does is like it gathers data from different studies, maybe 5 studies on the same subject. What are the findings from the quantitative studies? Then it computes the findings with statistical analysis and it will give some interpretation, cumulative references. By studying the 5 studies stated that so and so, this much percentage of people have this much percentage agreed for this. It does start, that means when we do a research, we send the data for analysis and interpretation. But at the same time, the findings what we publish can be gathered and the findings of 5 studies can be sent again for statistical analysis where we can get a cumulative inferences and conclusion. That's how it is. So from large body of quantitative findings to enhance the understanding, that is study unit of analysis. Chances of publication bias is more. So especially when we say meta-analysis, it will be helpful for us to analyze how independent variables like influence the dependent variables. So there is an explanation between independent variable and dependent variable, how they are dependent. So for this we need sufficient amount of data. If suppose there is no insufficient, data is insufficient, then it makes difficult for the person to do meta-analysis. Next one is meta-synthesis. Synthesis, that word itself means to combine or to integrate. So as said, like no, this takes qualitative studies like phenomenological grounded studies, ethnographic studies, all these studies where we try to measure the attitudes or cultures, lifestyles, etc. of a person's, case studies, and the non-statistical technique is used to integrate, evaluate and interpret them. And this will lead to forming new conceptualizations, new interpretation. We get some themes out of these studies. These are different methods of review of literature. Now, skills required for review of literature. There are 4 skills which are required. Out of that, first one is critical thinking skills. So, when we say critical thinking, the ability of a person to think clearly and rationally. Why is this needed? Because if a researcher has this critical thinking skills, he will be able to understand the logical connection between the ideas. He will be able to identify, construct and evaluate the arguments represented by various scholars. He will be able to detect the inconsistencies or the common mistakes in the literature, or he will be able to identify the gaps. He will be able to solve problems systematically, identify the relevance and importance of ideas in connection to his topic or problem statement, reflect on justification of his own beliefs or values. So, critical thinking skills will help an individual to do all this: understand, identify, detect, solve, identify and reflect. Next, critical reading skills. So why the reading skills are very important? When you're reviewing literature, it needs a lot of concentration, attention, and you need to understand ahead what you want to get, what information you want to get from the literature. So when you're looking into the literature, you need to be active and participate. Presence of mind should be there. Inner dialogue should be there with the writer. You need to look for problem statements, assumptions, hypotheses, objectives, ideas, interpretations, recommendations. You need to experience, because the review of literature, what you're searching is something relevant to your problem statement. So you should go in connection. They should be both parallel. Then only you will be able to understand which is important, which is necessary and needed literature for your problem statement. Then critical appraisal and information seeking skill. Critical appraisal means evaluating the written information or written material, assessing whether it is having reliability or validity, whether it is near to the truth, whether it will be useful clinically or not. That is critical appraisal skill. Then information seeking skill. You should be able to scan or locate where the literature is available, how to browse for the literature, where to browse for the literature, which articles do provide the information, which books do provide the information. So this is information seeking skill. These are 4 skills which are required for literature review. Critical appraisal skill, information seeking skill. Next, coming to some of the steps of literature review. Selecting the review topic is the first important aspects regarding what you want to do review of literature. That is, the topic is very important. Then searching for the literature. It involves where to search, locating the sources, whether it is primary source, secondary source, tertiary source, and whether you are finding location of the sources is very important. Next, gathering the relevant information, reading them, analyzing, synthesizing, and from that review, writing the review from the literature what you have gathered. When you write the review, what are the important areas you need to cover? That we will see in the last end of this video. And the references from where you got the literature. These are some steps which you have to keep in mind. Now coming to types of sources of literature, we have, as said, primary, secondary and tertiary. We go very quickly because I think you know this. Primary source is the first-hand information or record of an event or an experience. Then this is mainly published or explained by the researcher who have conducted. This is the original material where the scholar who has done the study publishes or conveys or disseminates. So we have an example here also where at the top we have like all the researchers who are included and which year it is done, on what they have done and where. Vietnam, it is done in Vietnam. And what type of study? Qualitative study. It's a health policy. So this is the first hand information where the scholar publishes. Next, coming to secondary sources. These are descriptions or summaries other than the original researcher. It might be a review article which summarizes what is known about the particular phenomena or a material, that provides some interpretations and explanations, especially from the primary sources. So from the primary sources, we take it and we provide some other information. So for example, here we have a study which is done, which year it is done, and service site is a review is mentioned here, and the journal which is published. Next we have tertiary sources. These sources synthesize and explain the work of others that might be helpful at the early stage. So especially like directories, fact books and guidebooks and manuals, those are important. They provide an overview of a topic, like Global Health Observatory reports on current health, trends for priority health issues, etc. So where we can locate for these sources, we'll go. Then what are primary sources, secondary sources and tertiary sources? We have some of the examples of this. So when we say primary sources, there might be reports, theses, emails, conferences, proceedings, company reports, government publications, unpublished manuscript sources or interviews. When we say secondary sources, they can be from newspapers, books, journals, internets, some government publications and surveys. When we say tertiary, it can be from indices, abstracts, catalogs, encyclopedias, dictionaries and bibliographies. These are some of the examples of the literary sources. Now coming to locating the sources, where you can locate. So most of the time, like students do face difficulty. They come with a question, where can I find the review of literature? I am not able to find many studies on my problem statement. So here are some sources where you can locate. First is library. So here in library, we find like well organized print books will be there, journals will be there, e-journals, visual material or audio visual materials we can get, and we can just get information in these libraries. Especially three categories are there: public libraries, special libraries, and academic libraries. When we say public libraries, accessible to everyone, they are not specialized, they are set up in some areas where we can go and have an access. Then we have academic libraries where we can get access in our colleges where we are studying. Then we have special libraries which can be placed at the health settings, different health settings. So library is one important source where you can have an access to literature. Next one is print database resources. Mainly consists of indices, card catalog, and abstract reviews. So here we can have an access to different articles, variety of topics and publications of professional organizations and various governmental organizations also. Then the third one is computer database resources. This is the one which most of them browse. So latestly we are following like innovative, we have innovative practices now. So most of the research scholars are publishing online. So some of the common databases are like Medline. It is a comprehensive database for health literature managed by National Liberty of Medicine USA, then International Nursing Index and Index Medicus. We call it as Medline. Then we have Cochrane Review. It is another important database where we can search extensively on health related topics. Then we have Cumulative Index to Nursing and Allied Health Literatures. So here also we can find many articles related to nursing aspects. Then we have google.com, we have open access journals, and we have Elsevier publications. This also has some nursing journals, and we have sciencedirect.com, and we have nurse centers. All these databases provide access to health and nursing related aspects. Next, we have personal networking. Personal networking is nothing but where we gather information from the society, from different colleagues or peers or people where we meet different people and gather information. That is said as personal networking. So these are different locations where you can have an access to literature. So these are some of the main points of review of literature. Now coming to summary of information required in literature review. So when we go through the literature, we need to keep these aspects in our mind. So we need to be keen on certain areas like title of the study, author, which year it is conducted, and where it is published, which journal. What is the purpose of the study? Type of the study means descriptive, explorative, experimental, etc. Then key definitions, credibility, whether it is having credibility or not, recent one or not, settings, data collection method, appraisal criteria, how you appreciate whether it is near to the truth, content and major findings of the study. Then synthesis of the studies. If you are just doing synthesis of the studies like meta synthesis is one method of review of literature. Then whether it is coherent and recommendations mentioned in the literature, summary and conclusions, key thoughts or comments, what are the weaknesses and what are the strengths, whether it is a primary source or not, secondary source, all these aspects you need to keep in mind. So when you're going through the literature, starting itself, if you have these aspects, then you will be able to focus on the main aspects of the literature so that you will not miss any valuable information. So this is all related to review of literature. I hope you all have had a good understanding of the topic. I hope I made myself very clear. To summarize, we have discussed about the definition part of it, then we have discussed about the characteristics of good quality review of literature, purposes, importance, then methods of literature review, then sources of literature review, and locations, and some of the steps involved in research process, review of literature. So this is all for now. I hope this video would be useful for you. Pretty soon we'll meet again with another important question or another important topic related. Especially I find there are some questions related to sampling and data collection. So I might come with any of those in my next video. Till then, bye bye. Please don't forget to share and subscribe. Thank you all very much.